What's up, fellow Gen Xers and enthusiasts? Welcome to Exhale and Rewind, where we're all about celebrating our unique experiences growing up as part of Gen X. We witnessed some truly impactful moments, like the Desert Storm, the Challenger explosion, the tragic passing of Princess Diana, and the death of rock legend Kurt Cobain. But hey, we also saw some truly amazing things like the Berlin Wall coming down, the rise of MTV, the birth of arcades, the launch of the We Are the World video, mixtapes, and playing Oregon Trail on the first school computers. And we are here to share with you just a little bit about what life was like as a Gen Xer. Exhale and Rewind. Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to Exhale and Rewind. Now, this is that show where we dust off our collective memories and we remind ourselves why growing up when we did was both amazing and a bit traumatizing. I am, as always, your boy and your host, Mike.
And I'm JuJu. For our first-time listeners, this is where we dive into that nostalgic experiences that shaped Gen X childhoods. No filters, no Instagram, just pure, unfiltered memories.
Yeah, and today we're tackling something that absolutely defined our after-school experience. That's right, those infamous after-school specials and very special episodes that tried to teach us life lessons through the magic of awkward television.
Oh my God. The melodrama, the heavy-handed morals, the child actors delivering lines about serious topics with all the subtlety of a sledgehammer.
Yeah, like these shows tackled everything from drug abuse to teen pregnancy to peer pressure. And somehow we all survived the emotional whiplash. But before we dive in, I want to give a huge thanks to all of our supporters, our subscribers, and our monthly members who keep this show going. Unlike some of those special episodes that got canceled after traumatizing an entire generation of kids.
So, let's rewind to when television thought could solve all of society's problems in 30 to 60 minutes.
Alright, we're going to start with the granddaddy of them all, the ABC Afterschool Special, which ran from 1972 to 1997. And let me just say, it scarred. I mean, educated multiple generations of kids.
These weren't just TV shows. They were cultural events. You come home from school, turn on the TV, and suddenly find yourself getting a crash course in topics your parents probably weren't ready to discuss.
Yeah. The formula was always the same, too. Like, take a serious social issue, cast some young actors who looked like they could be in your homeroom, add some adult authority figures who clearly did not understand teens, and boom, instant life lesson.
And they had the most dramatic title, The Loneliest Runner, a very delicate matter. She drinks a little. You knew you were in for some heavy stuff just from opening credits.
Yeah, she drinks a little. Now that sounds like the understatement of the century. These shows didn't believe in subtlety.
Let's talk about some of the most memorable ones. The Day My Kid Went Punk from 1987 was basically every parent's nightmare about their teenagers' music choices.
Yeah, I remember that one. The kid discovers punk rock and suddenly he's wearing safety pins and having philosophical debates about conformity. And his parents, they act like he's joined a cult or something.
Which, to be fair, is probably how a lot of parents felt about any music that wasn't elevator music. Yeah. The generation gap was real, and these specials loved to exploit it.
And then there was Babies Having Babies. Now this one tackled teen pregnancy with all the delicacy of a brick through a window. Like, the message was clear. You have sex as a teen, and your life is basically over.
The pregnancy episodes were always so doom and gloom. It was never teen mom figures out how to make it work. It was always teen pregnancy ruins everything forever.
Yeah, and they always had that one scene where the pregnant teen would stand in front of a mirror, put a pillow under her shirt, and have this dramatic breakdown about her future.
The pillow under the shirt method was the height of pregnancy simulation technology.
Right. Hey, one of the most famous ones was The Wave from 1981. Now, this one was actually based on a real experiment. There's a high school teacher who creates a fascist movement, to teach his students about Nazi Germany, except it gets completely out of hand.
That one was genuinely terrifying. Watching teenagers get swept up in authoritarianism was way more scary than any horror movie.
Yeah, I mean, it was brilliant, though, let's be honest, because it didn't talk down to the kids. It showed how easily people can be manipulated, even those smart ones who think they're immune to it.
The bullying episodes were always intense, too. Please Don't Hit Me, Mom dealt with child abuse, which was not something most families were talking about openly in the 1980s.
Yeah, they definitely were. And these shows were often the first time a lot of kids encountered these topics. Like before the internet, before cable TV, with mature content. The after school special was how a lot of us learned about these problems.
Which was both good and terrifying. On one hand, it was important information. On the other hand, it was delivered with all the nuance of a public service announcement.
Yeah, and hey, the acting was, we'll just say, enthusiastic. Like, these young actors are trying so hard to convey the seriousness of their situations that every line was delivered like they were auditioning for Shakespeare.
You don't understand. If I don't go to this party, my social life will be ruined forever.
Good job. All right, every problem was the end of the world. Like, there was no such thing as a minor issue on an after-school special.
And the parents were always either completely oblivious or way too strict. There was no middle ground. Either they had no idea what their kids were going through, or they were totally authoritarians.
Yeah, the peer pressure episodes were probably the most common, if I'm being honest. Like, kids would be pressured to try drugs, drink alcohol, skip school, or even steal something. And there would always be that one good kid who had to make the right choice.
And the peer pressure was always so obvious. The bad kids might as well had signs that said, "We're going to corrupt you."
Like, come on, try this joint. All the cool kids were doing it. Like, real peer pressure is ever that direct, y'all.
The anti-drug episodes were particularly over the top. One joint and you'd be homeless, dropping out of school, and disappointing your parents forever.
Yeah, and remember Stone? Like, a kid tries marijuana once, and all of a sudden he's immediately a complete addict who steals from his family and ruins his entire life.
The progression was always try drugs once, become instantly addicted, lose all your friends, disappoint your parents, ruin your future, no middle steps.
But hey, you know what? Despite how heavy-handed they were, these shows did start conversations. Let's be honest. Kids would talk about them at school the next day.
Absolutely. They were shared experience in a way that's hard to imagine now. Everyone watched them because there were only a few channels. So the whole generation was getting the same messages at the same time.
Yeah. And they featured a lot of young actors who went on to become famous. You had Helen Hunt, Sarah Jessica Parker, Rob Lowe. Like, they all did their time in after-school special trenches.
It was like a rite of passage for young actors. If you wanted to be taken seriously, you had to do at least one episode where you cried about a serious social issue.
Yeah. And after-school specials weren't the only place we got our heavy doses of life lessons. Like, regular TV shows in the 80s and 90s loved to do very special episodes that tackled serious topics.
Oh, the very special episode. You knew you were in for something heavy when the opening credits rolled and there was a special announcement about parental guidance.
Yeah. Diff'rent Strokes. Now, that was notorious for this. They tackled everything from child molestation to drug abuse to hitchhiking dangers. Like, poor Arnold and Willis went through more trauma than most war veterans.
The bicycle shop owner episode was terrifying. Mr. Horton trying to lure Arnold and Dudley with comic books and games. That was every parent's nightmare.
The Bicycle Man. Now, that was genuinely educational. Like, it was showing kids exactly what predatory behavior looked like, which was information that we needed.
But it was also traumatizing. I was afraid of box shops for years after that episode.
And then there was a drug episode with Nancy Reagan. Just say no. Now, that became a cultural phenomenon. But hey, watching Gordon try to peer pressure little kids into taking pills, That was just disturbing.
Poor Gordon Jump. He went from being a lovable Arthur Carlson on WKRP to being every parent's worst nightmare on Diff'rent Strokes.
WKRP in Cincinnati. All right, y'all, Family Ties. Now, it had some memorable special episodes, too. Like, I remember when Alex's friend dies in a car accident, and Alex has a complete breakdown. Now, that was some heavy stuff for a sitcom.
Michael J. Fox was incredible in that episode. You really believed he was going through genuine grief and survivor's guilt.
Yeah, and it showed that even the perfect character could struggle with mental issues. Like, Alex was supposed to be the smart, together one, but he completely fell apart.
Growing Pains tackled eating disorders, drunk driving. I mean, poor Carol Seaver went through everything.
Yeah, the drunk driving episode with Carol's boyfriend, played by the now late Matthew Perry, y'all. Like, no jokes, no laughs, just the real consequences of bad decisions.
Punky Brewster dealt with some incredibly heavy topics for a show about a spunky orphan. The episode about her friend getting trapped in an old refrigerator gave me nightmares.
Yeah, that was genuinely terrifying. And it was educational. Like, it taught kids about the dangers of abandoned appliances. But man, that imagery was haunting.
The child abuse episode where Punky's friend has bruises was also really difficult to watch. These shows didn't shy away from the darkest aspects of childhood.
Yeah. And Webster, like, it had its share of very special episodes too. Like that kidnapping episode, the episode about racism, the one about stranger danger, the little kid went through everything.
It's amazing these child actors survived their childhoods, considering all the trauma their characters experienced.
Yeah. Shows like Mr. Belvedere, it tackled AIDS, which was incredibly brave for the late 80s. The episode where Wesley's friend has AIDS and faces discrimination, now that was groundbreaking, man.
That was during the height of AIDS panic, when people were genuinely afraid of casual contact. The show took a strong stance about education and compassion.
Yeah, and even Saved by the Bell got in on the action. Like, you had that caffeine pill episode with Jesse. It was iconic. Like, I'm so excited. I'm so excited. So scared.
Elizabeth Berkley's performance in that episode was so over the top, but it was also genuinely affecting.
It worked.
The pressure to be perfect.
That episode really showed a lot of people about prescription drug abuse before it became a major epidemic, too. Like, looking back, it was pretty pressing.
Full House was the king of very special episodes. They tackled drunk driving, eating disorders, smoking, and peer pressure with the subtlety of a marching band.
Yeah, Danny Tanner's speeches were legendary. Like, he could turn any minor incident into a 20 or 30-minute life lesson about values and families.
Girls, let's sit down and have a heart-to-heart about why what happened today is actually about something much more important.
And then they'd hug it out while that sappy music played in the background. Like, that whole Full House formula, it was unbeatable back then.
Blossom dealt with some serious mature topics too. The episode about attempted date rape was incredibly heavy for a show aimed at teenagers.
Yeah. Maya Bialik was so good at handling serious material. She could make you laugh and then make you cry in the same episode, y'all.
The thing about these very special episodes is that they often felt more impactful than the dedicated after-school specials because we already knew and loved these characters.
Exactly. When it was Arnold or Alex or Punky going through something traumatic, like, it hit you harder because we've been watching them for years.
These episodes also served as conversation starters between parents and kids.
Yeah.
Suddenly, there was a framework for talking about difficult topics.
Yeah, but sometimes those conversations were as awkward as the episodes themselves. So, did you understand, son, what that episode was about?
And we'd be like, yes, Mom, I understand that drugs are bad. Can we please not talk about this anymore?
And the production values of these episodes were often a lot different, too. Like, they'd get more serious directors, better lighting, dramatic music. Like, you could really tell they were trying to make art, not just entertainment.
and they usually aired during sweeps weeks because they knew these episodes would get higher rating.
Yep.
Nothing like child trauma to boost your numbers, huh?
Hey, but honestly, despite the heavy-headedness and the sometimes questionable execution, these episodes did serve an important purpose. Like, they introduced concepts that kids might not encounter otherwise.
And they showed that it was okay to talk about difficult things. Even if the execution was clunky, the message was that these topics weren't taboo.
All right, let's dive into some of the most memorable and sometimes laughably bad after-school specials that are still talked about today.
We have to start with Don't Touch Me from 1985, which it was generally important programming, but the execution was so intense that schools had to send home warning letters to parents.
Yeah. You know, that one was brutal. The kids couldn't even say what happened to him. Like, he just kept repeating, "Don't touch me," over and over. Like, it was heartbreaking. But also, it was genuinely educational.
Then there's Schoolboy Father, which actually talked about teen pregnancy from a father's perspective. Revolutionary for its time.
Yeah, it was good. Most shows only focused on the girl's experience. Like, so showing how teen pregnancy affected the boy, now that was actually pretty progressive then, even if that execution was really heavy-handed.
My Other Mother dealt with having a gay parent, which was incredibly controversial in 1981.
Yeah.
The fact that it existed at all was groundbreaking.
Yeah, could you imagine the hate mail that they must have gotten? But hey, they did it anyway because they thought it was important for kids to see different types of families.
A Family Again tackled divorce, which was still pretty taboo in family programming. It showed kids that divorce wasn't their fault and that families could survive it.
Yeah, the divorce episodes were always so sad because, like, they really tried to be optimistic, but you could see these kids were genuinely heartbroken.
Now, let's talk about some of the unintentionally hilarious ones. The Day My Kid Went Punk is comedy gold now, but it was dead serious at that time.
Like, these parents acted like their son discovering the Ramones was equivalent to him joining ISIS or something. Like, the overreaction was crazy.
And the punk kid wasn't even that punk.
No.
He had like one safety pin and a slightly messy haircut. Today's kids would laugh at how time he was.
Definitely. All right, so High School Narc. Now, that was another unintentionally comedy. Like, this kid becomes an undercover narc to bust his classmates for dealing drugs. And somehow, it's portrayed as heroic.
Yeah, nothing says relatable protagonist, like a teenage police informant. I'm sure that kid had a great rest of his high school experience.
Oh, yeah. Don't forget about Daddy. I'm their mama now. Now, it was about kids taking care of their alcoholic parents. And, like, this title alone tells you everything you need to know about the subtlety in this.
These titles were amazing. My mom's having a baby. Why can't I have what I want? Please don't hit me, Mom. They really believed in truth in advertising.
Let's talk about The Great Love Experiment. Now, it was supposed to be about teen relationships, but it ended up being this weird social science experiment that no actual teen would have ever participated in.
And Which Mother Is Mine? About adoption was well-intentioned, but treated adoption like it was this terrible secret that would destroy families if revealed.
Yeah. And the racial integration episodes were often problematic too, let's be honest. Like, they meant well, but they usually featured one token minority character teaching white kids about tolerance.
The Color of Friendship was actually pretty good for its time, but a lot of the others were painfully obvious in their messaging.
Yeah, 100. Let's see. Wanted, The Perfect Guy. Now, that was about teenage girls, unrealistic expectations in relationships, and it was actually a pretty sophisticated topic for the time.
Though the execution was basically girls lower your standards and you'll be happy. Not exactly the feminist message we needed.
Yeah, some of these specials were generally ahead of their time, though. Like, What If I'm Gay? Was incredibly brave for that time.
That one got death threats, but they aired it anyway. And it probably helped a lot of kids who were struggling with their identity.
Yeah, for sure. My Past Is My Own. Now, it dealt with teenage runaways, which was a huge problem in the 80s, but wasn't talked about much in mainstream media, if we're being honest.
The production quality varied wildly too. Some of them looked like major TV movies, others looked like they were filmed in someone's basement with a camcorder.
Hey, and the music. Like those dramatic synthesizer scores that were supposed to make everything feel more serious, but hey, let's be honest, it just made it feel like a soap opera.
The acting ranged from surprisingly good to did they just grab random kids from the mall? There was no middle ground.
But hey, here's the thing. Even these bad ones were memorable. Like, we're still talking about them 30 years later, y'all. So they clearly made an impact.
And they tackled topics that no one else was willing to address. Sure, they were heavy-handed, but they were also brave.
Hey, they trusted kids to handle serious material, which was actually pretty radical for children's programming at that time.
Most kids' shows were pure escapism, but these specials said, let's talk about the real world and how to navigate it.
Yeah, even when they got it wrong while trying to do something important. Like, you have to respect that somewhere. So looking back at these after-school specials and very special episodes, like, one thing that's clear is that they had a huge impact on how Gen X processes serious topics and social issues.
For better or worse. These shows shaped our understanding of morality, consequences, and social issues. They were like our secular Sunday school.
Yeah, and they also created this expectation that every problem has a clear solution and every situation has a moral lesson. Like, real life is a whole lot messier than that. We all know that, but those shows made us believe in neat resolutions.
The format was so influential too. The idea that you could tackle serious social issues through entertainment became a template that's still used today.
Yeah, I mean, think about shows like 13 Reasons Why or Euphoria. Like, they're basically modern after-school specials with a whole lot more production value and more realistic dialogue.
Though they're way more graphic and complex than anything we saw in the 80s and 90s. Our specials were drugs are bad, don't do them. Today's shows are like, here's the entire ecosystem of teenage drug culture.
Yeah, definitely. And the acting style from these specials became a cultural touchstone. Like, that overly earnest, slightly hysterical delivery, it would become shorthand for very serious television.
You can still do an after-school special impression, and everyone knows exactly what you mean.
And they created this whole genre of parody, like Saturday Night Live and Living Color, and countless other comedy shows mocked the format mercilessly.
But the fact that they were so mockable also made them memorable.
Yeah.
The earnestness was both their strength and their weakness.
And these shows also reflected the anxieties of their time. Like in the 80s, it was all about drugs, teen pregnancy, and stranger danger. Like the fears of the Reagan era.
Right? You can trace the moral panics of each decade through what topics the specials focused on.
Yeah.
It's like a time capsule of parental anxiety.
Look, they were also incredibly diverse for their time. Like, in terms of the social issues they addressed, and they did not shy away from controversial topics either.
Though the diversity in casting was less impressive, most of the protagonists were white suburban kids. Even when dealing with issues that affected all communities.
Yeah, and the educational aspect was real, though. Like, a lot of us learned important information from these shows, even if it was delivered with all the subtlety of a brick.
They demystified topics that adults were uncomfortable discussing. Suddenly, there was a shared vocabulary for talking about difficult things.
Yeah, and they normalized the idea that kids could and should think about serious social issues. Like, they weren't just entertainment. They were prep for adulthood.
The production approach influenced a whole generation of filmmakers, too. A lot of directors and writers cut their teeth on these specials.
Yeah, Joseph Sargent, who directed several after-school specials, would go on to direct several major Hollywood films. Like, these weren't throwaway projects. They were training ground.
The child actors who appeared in these shows often talk about how the experience shaped their understanding of their craft and their responsibility as a performer.
Right. Like, Helen Hunt has said that doing after-school specials taught her how to handle serious material and how to connect with difficult emotions on camera.
The cultural impact It extended beyond just Gen X too. Parents watch these shows and use them as conversation starters with their kids.
Yeah. Sometimes, though, conversations were more awkward than the shows themselves. Definitely, they created a framework for having those difficult conversations. Even if that execution was clunky, the intention was to open dialogue.
The format also influenced how we consume media about social issues today. We expect our entertainment to have a message or a lesson.
And that isn't always a good thing, y'all. Sometimes entertainment can just be entertainment. But hey, these shows created the expectation that everything should be educational.
They also set the template for issue-based television that we still see today. Every show feels like it needs to tackle the social issue of the moment.
Yeah, and the earnestness of those specials is something that's hard to find in today's more cynical media landscape. Like, they genuinely believed they could make the world better through television.
That optimism was both naive and admirable.
Yeah.
They thought they could solve teen pregnancy and drug abuse with 60 minutes of television and a heartfelt speech.
But hey, you know what? Maybe some problems were actually addressed because of these shows. Like, maybe some kids made better choices because they saw the consequences played out on a screen.
And maybe some parents had conversations with their kids they wouldn't have had otherwise.
Yeah.
The impact might have been smaller than intended, but it was real.
And the fact that we're still talking about them decades later, like, that shows lasting power. I mean, even if it wasn't always the power they intended to have.
They're a part of our cultural DNA now. References to after-school specials are understood across generations, even by people who never watched them.
And they remind us of a time when television felt a responsibility to educate and inform, not just entertain. Like, that's not entirely a bad thing, y'all.
Well, our very special episode about very special episodes is coming to an end. And I'm feeling both nostalgic and slightly traumatized all over again.
Yeah, that's the after-school special effect. They were designed to stick with you, whether you wanted them to or not.
Despite all the melodrama and heavy-handed messaging, these shows were an important part of our cultural education. They tackled topics that no one else was willing to address.
Yeah, and they did it with the best of intentions. Even when the execution was really questionable. Like, they genuinely wanted to help kids navigate through this complicated world.
They also created shared experiences for our generation.
Yeah.
We all survived the same traumatic television together, and that bonds us in a weird way.
Plus, they gave us endless materials for jokes and impressions, y'all. Like, the cultural impact of that dramatic after-school special acting style cannot ever be overstated.
We want to hear from our listeners about their most memorable after-school special experiences. Which ones traumatized you? Which ones actually taught you something useful? Which ones were so bad, they were good? Send us your stories on social media and definitely let us know if you have any behind-the-scenes information about these shows. We'd love to hear from people who worked on them or were affected by them.
As always, huge thanks to our members and our support who make this show possible. Your support helps us keep diving into these nostalgic rabbit holes that shaped our generation.
Hey, and don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and tell your friends about the show. Like, sharing is caring, just like those after-school specials taught us.
Next week.
Now, don't even start that. All right, y'all. From after-school specials to whatever I bring you next week. I'm already having flashbacks.
Until then, I'm JuJu.
And I'm your boy and your host, Mike.
And this has been an Exhale and Rewind,
where we look back so we don't forget to look forward. And now, I'm going to jump into that rabbit hole we were talking about for the next show. All right, so JuJu, what was the most traumatizing after-school special you ever saw?
Oh, definitely the one about the kid getting by his babysitter's boyfriend.
Oh, man.
I was way too young to understand what was happening, but I knew it was terrible.
Yeah, those shows did not mess around, man. Like, they went straight for the deepest fears that parents had about their kids.
And somehow, we all turned out okay. Well, mostly okay.
Yeah, mostly okay is the Gen X motto, y'all.